Alright, so we're talking about bed fishing with the Huddleston. And so I was somewhere where, bed fishing with the Huddleston is a little different because the fish, they're not trying to eat the whole bait. They're not coming up and eating it, they're just trying to get it out. They see a big trout and they think it's a threat, and the big female, she's just trying to get it out of there. Now, when I'm bed fishing, I don't really like to hook the male. A lot of people will go in there and the first thing they do is hook the male and they'll take it, throw it in the live well, take it and walk, down the bank and let go. That way just the female's there. And I do that, if I have to, like as a last resort, and it's like an absolute giant female. But I don't really like to hook the males, or if it's a giant male. If you've got like a 6-pound female and there's like a 3-pound male or something on there, sure, I might hook that male, just, if I can't get the female to react at all. But a lot of times I won't, if that male is in there and he's super fired up, I'm not going to put that stinger hook on the back because I don't necessarily want to hook him. Bed fishing, you're basically trying to get those fish fired up, getting them aggressive. And so what you do is you get a big bait like this and you get a little male, about 2-pound male or so. And this bait's a little much for him. He'll come in, he'll pound on it, he'll do stuff, but you keep throwing it over and over and over, and that male will come. And eventually, that female that's been roaming around out there, she'll see that he's struggling with that. And eventually, if you do it long enough, I bed fished last year, to be honest, I'm going to tell you. So, it took me, I think it was 3 days to catch this bed fish that was under 5 pounds, like 4.5, 4 3/4. On a Huddleston last year. It was last bed fishing season, 2019. And it took me days. I stayed here at my sister's and I'd walk, there's that lake down the road, I'd walk there, I'd fish, I'd be there at as soon as it got the sun was up high enough to see the bed, I'd be there, and I'd be there until the sun went down and I couldn't see the bed. And actually, when I ended up catching it, I couldn't see the bed. I had just been fishing the bed so long, I knew where the bed was, so I was just, continuing to fish it because I knew what to do. I knew exactly where the bed was. So I was actually fishing it without actually seeing it. And that's actually how I ended up catching her. But I spent 3 days there, sun up to sundown, basically, fishing this bed with the Huddleston, and that's exactly what happened. The little male, the 2-pound male, actually caught him. I ended up catching him on a glide bait, I think. So you can catch the male; it doesn't hurt him, but I try not to. Especially if if I hook him once, I definitely don't. I don't like to hook the male over and over because he will continue to bite. A lot of these aggressive males will continue to bite. But anyway, so yeah, I don't really like to put that stinger just because I don't want to catch that male. And so you can fish. Like I did, I fished for 3 days, pounding this Huddleston in there, and finally, that male just couldn't, the female finally realized that male was not big enough to do it. And these fish, they weren't, it was a male that was up there, and a female that was just outside roaming around. They hadn't spawned yet, they were pre-spawned, she had a big old fat belly on her, they were pre-spawned, and it was actually during a cold front. It was actually a stormy, cold, rainy day, so it's kind of hard. All 3 of those days were, so it was actually kind of hard to sight fish, but I still could do it. And so that's why they didn't spawn. That's why she was there for 3 days without spawning, because she was up there the day before. When I went there, it was sunny. They were both up there, and the next day was a cold front that came in, and she backed off. So you could see her, but she was backed off, and the male was still up there. So eventually, after just pounding that male over and over, she finally realized that this thing is not going to leave him alone, and that he is not big enough to deal with the problem. So she came in, got involved, and got it pretty good. And then I also ended up losing, I think it was after that, I ended up losing a 6. And that's what she did. She, like I said, she didn't eat the bait. She wasn't trying to engulf it. She was just trying to say, hey, get out of here. She popped at it, and that hook just barely got her just in the corner. And I got her right up to the dock, went to reach down for her. She, did her big old head shake, and there goes my bait, flew away.
Come here, don't go. Oh, no. Oh.
My bait flew up, and there she went. And I'd say that was probably about a 6 with a nice big old belly on her. And that was sad. But, stuff happens. But anyway, so that's with rigging, with the stinger. So then the next one, and this is one of the most famous rigs everyone probably knows that throws a HUD, or maybe you haven't heard of it, but it's the Butch Brown style rig, or the BB rig, Butch Brown, or is that what they do, the BB? Yeah, I think that's what they call it, the Butch Brown rig, BB. And this one, I mean, there's different ways of doing it, and Butch Brown actually has his own way. This is not exactly how he did it, but it's basically the same style, and that is, you take the jig hook, you cut it off, and you put a treble hook on top of this thing. And this way it works. This definitely works. You definitely can catch fish on it, but it's not my preferred way. I'm going to share with you why. Okay, so if you take a jig hook, for instance, alright, this is one hook, it's got one point, and it's a solid, strong hook. When you stick them with that, and you get them in the roof of the mouth, or wherever it may be, you got this one big old jig hook, and that's not really going to bend out. I've never had any bend outs with this, except on snags, and we'll get into that a little bit, but I bent it out on like getting snagged up, and I don't know how my line didn't break. I had 25-pound copolymer just reefing on that, and it ended up tweaking it, and it didn't bend it way out, just barely tweaked it up. And so these hooks are pretty strong, these Huddleston jig hooks, from my experience, they're strong. And so when you get them on that, you have no issue. You keep that sucker pinned, nothing's going on. Now here's the deal with this. When you have a treble hook is designed for the pressure to be evenly distributed. Right? So you have 3 prongs. Right? And so it's not as strong. Each prong is weaker than this one jig hook, right? So if you just get a fish on one of these prongs, fish comes up and he bites, he just gets one of these prongs, that's weaker than if he had a big thick jig hook, because this point on this treble hook, it's smaller for one too, and it's weaker. So if a fish comes up and he hits this and he gets one of these points, that is a lot more likely to bend out than if he were to get one single big jig hook, because the jig hook is bigger and stronger than that one point on a treble hook. Now saying that, you can get some pretty beefed up treble hooks. This is an Owner ST56, I believe, which is a pretty stout. The 56s are pretty dang strong, pretty dang sharp as well. And these hooks, yeah, they don't bend out very easily, but they do bend out when you get them on one point. And I haven't done it with a fish, but I've definitely seen it with getting snagged up before. It takes a lot less when you get them on this one point and you pull. It takes a lot less pressure to bend that one point out. However, if you have a fish come up and hit this and he gets 2 or more points, in this case I only have 2 on here, so if he comes up and he gets both of those jammed up in there, he's most likely coming in the boat. Because now the pressure is evenly distributed on both of these. It's not on one of them, it's on both of them. And so now the pressure it's not all on one. And you know, it's stronger that way, you know. Hopefully you get what I'm saying. So anyway, so how I rig this up, and I only do this back to, you know, the way I have this set up. I only rig them up like this, the Butch Brown style, if something happens to that jig hook. I don't get them like Butch Brown would get them. You know, he has videos on YouTube. He gets them, he pulls them out of the package, and he takes his dikes and he cuts off that jig hook right out of the package. I only do it when a couple things happen. Either one, if I catch a lot of fish on it, which haven't really got to that point yet, but if I catch a ton of like nice big fish on one of them, and I kind of feel like that hook might start, you know, losing its power, that's when I'll do it. Or if I get snagged, and that's what happened to this one. I have a Huddleston 68 that I have that I jimmy rigged as well, and that's because that's what happened. If I get snagged up and that thing gets tweaked, and it might get bent a little bit, and I might bend it back once or twice. But if I have, you know, if it gets hung up and it gets to the point where you give it a good pull and every time it just straightens out, no way. I'm not taking a chance of hooking a 10-pounder on that. So then I take my dikes, cut it down as low as I can get it. And this is a little rig that I'm not going to say I came up with it, but I haven't really seen, I don't think, anybody do it. Like, I watch a lot of YouTube videos on, on fishing and things in general, but I haven't really seen anybody out here using this. But what I did is I took a treble hook and a piece of braid, took some 65-pound braid, doubled it, and did some kind of knot. I really honestly don't know what kind of knot I did. I just kind of jimmy rigged it, did a big old strong knot, reefed on it as hard as I could, and nothing happened. And then I put some super glue on there. And that's a trick with braid. Braid can slip. And so I always put super glue on if I want it to be real strong like this and last a long time. I'll tie a really good strong knot, put a little dab of super glue. And you want to be careful because super glue can make things brittle. It can, some stuff it can absorb it and it can actually become brittle after time. So you want to be careful. But with the braid, as long as you're pretty easy with it, like this knot is not going anywhere. And it's 65-pound braid doubled. So it's strong knot. But it's around the eye, just the line tie. And then what I did with that treble hook, like I said, this is an Owner ST56, and I broke off that third treble hook. I broke off that one, or I cut it off with dikes, and then I bent it. You just take it and I kind of bent it a little bit. And then what I do is I find, how long that is, and where it's going to stick into the bait. I took a drill, and I drilled into the foam harness, kind of like a little angle. And so now what I do is I can kind of pull back on this, find that hole, and jam it in there. And now it's actually stuck in there. And now when you're casting, or when you're swimming it's not going to come out. It's going to stay in there. But now a big old fish comes up and he hits those points, and you swing and get him, that can pop out. And now, when you're fighting that fish, he has a little less leverage. That bait is not in his mouth. He can get that bait. That bait can be out of his mouth, doing whatever, and it's not as much leverage. In some people's eyes. In some people's eyes, line-through baits or baits that go away from the hook, they say has less leverage than when it has it in its mouth. I don't know about that, honestly. I'm a sturgeon fisherman. I fish for all kinds of fish, and when we use sturgeon fish, we have a big, almost like Carolina rig, I guess I'd say, sort of rig. We have a big old weight up your line, 10, 12 ounces maybe, depending on the river, and sometimes even higher. And then you have, your leader going down, and then you have, your bait, whatever it may be, shrimp or a whole, herring, smelt, whatever, a whole bait fish. And a lot of times, I've really been paying attention to this, especially the last time I went sturgeon fishing, is that weight, a huge weight is out front, and then your hook's back here, right? So it's kind of like the difference, same difference as like a line through bait, where the bait slides up and now the bait's way up here. But the problem is that sometimes, if you don't keep that fish really pinned, which with these baits, you want to swing on them and really grind on them, really keep them tight. But sometimes you can think, when that bait's way up here, you can think that you are tight on that fish, but really what you're feeling is the bait, because the bait is, way up your line. So you're like, oh, there's pressure there. I think, I got enough pressure. But really, you're feeling the weight of that bait, and he could be back here with a bunch of slack, and you're just feeling this weight. That's kind of how I put it, but also, I play sturgeon differently. Sturgeon's a different animal. I don't, crank on them and horse it in. They're not a 10-pound bass. They're depending on how big you get, 80, 100-pound, big old 6-7 foot sturgeon that you've got to, actually let them play a bit. But anyway, that's just kind of a little thought that I have about doing that. But yeah, so there's that rig. Just, like I said, drill a little hole like that, and you can just kind of pull it back and set it in there. Just like so. Eventually that hole is going to get worn out enough to where it's going to slide in and out really easy. And then all I do is take a pair of pliers and just tweak that, just bend that bottom broken hook just a little bit more. And there you go. Alright guys, I'm going to have to cut it off there, and thanks for watching this one. I'll see you in the next one.